When I came here 15 years ago, this was not fenced. And it was literally, most of the way around had been tromped out with cattle. So I built this Exclusion, and instead of it being just a hole, it's closed in over the years, and now it's just, you know, 8 feet across or so. It runs, I don't know, a lot. The reason I shoved a pipe in it is because when we're irrigating, it moves that water down there 100 feet. Because we got plenty of water, as you saw right there in that bottom. It's hard to get that to drain, so it's hard to hay. But I'll be shutting the water off soon, and we'll be able to hay most of that. We'll just see how wet it actually is. So on this particular spring, I wanted to check the pH because I have never checked the pH of this. And you can see if you get closer, the water just bubbles up. And it's a 4-inch line that runs out of here, and it runs full. I don't know why it's not running better. Than it is. So I was just going to check the pH. I predict that it's, I don't know, I bet it's closer to 8. So let's just see.
Mark, did you just develop this on your own, or did you work with the Exclude program? Or?
I did this on my own. Okay. I don't use Equip program, and here's why I don't use Equip program. I don't use Equip program because then it gives them the right to come on here and say you're flooding it too much. It gives them a lot of hooks for their period of time. So everything I did on my own dollar instead of the government dollar, and then I'm independent. I think it's important to maintain independence. There's a pH strip, there's a deer fly. Let's see. Well, it's somewhere between 7 and 8.
Yeah.
Probably about 7.5, something like that. Now, there seems to be a lot of pollen that's on the water. I drink this. So when I am working out here, I always got water to drink. So I just leave my bottle here. If it didn't have pollen on it, I'd give you a scoop if you want to taste it. It's good water. It's not as hard as you might worry about. It's not sour at all. But this is just, it's taking what you have and saying, no, I can do better than that. And what that looked like in this case was saying, no, cattle, you can drink, and I use this in the winter, you can drink somewhere else, below it. It's instead of actually at the source where you're destroying that. I mean, just look at that wonderful stuff. It just
does this stay open
bubbling up
winter
all winter, 100% of the year, because you know it's coming out at about 46 degrees. It takes a lot to freeze, right? And it's moving on beside, so it stays open. And then I'll take the pipe up also and just let it run in the winter. But the point being that basically this whole circle, I was worried when I first put it in that it would be too wet and I'd lose all these posts. Well, I didn't. And in fact, it just continues to close down, but it never will, because you can just see it heaving. Yeah. The surface just heaving with the water that's coming up there. But it's important to not degrade your spring sources, right? Fresh water sources. It's important to go ahead and exclude them. And that's why I dragged you all the way out here through the swamp to take a look at it. This was always wet down here. And last year I was moving some cattle along and I noticed water coming out of a hole right here. It was just a little bubbling out of the water. So I started here and just started digging back in here, little bit at a time. And what I found was, I knew they had some artesian well up about a quarter mile away from here. You saw the little pond. This has always been wet, but I never saw water really flowing. And so I just started digging on this. You say, why didn't you start digging down lower? Because when the creek floods, this was roughly the line that it floods to, okay? And I didn't want whatever I was gonna do with this. This only started last year. So I cut it open and just started working on it. And you can see the different places where the water runs in here, and it ends up running six gallons a minute. In the middle of August, I don't know yet. This is a spring in development, literally.
Okay.
I'm not sure what I'll do. I've never pH tested this one either, so I want to try that. I suspect this is different water than over there. That water over there is sweet, this is bitter. Still drinkable by cattle, but it's not nearly as good as the water is over there. I suspect it might be higher pH. We'll see. It's about the same, actually. Yeah. Between 7 and 8. But that's good for cattle. That's good for livestock. It's good for people, too. This is pretty hard water, and so it's bitter to taste. But it won't kill you. And so this is just you know, it's a thought on how to begin to use some of this and conserve it and do whatever I need to do. So it's kind of a spring in development, as opposed to that one over there. It's kind of done. I mean, that's what I'm going to do with it.
So you don't really have the salinity problems in some parts of the...
Not here, and especially over there on that side. The taste of this water is day and night compared to over there. This has got a bigger bitter tinge to it. That over there is not. So I wanted to show you this as another idea of sometimes they just start by accident. And you start digging along, pretty soon you got 6 gallons of water. Stayed here all summer last summer, all through the winter, stayed open. Had some cave-in problems, I had to re-dig it, but it just comes out from the ground in the rocks right here.
Forgive me if you already answered this, Mark, but what's your average rainfall and what's it been the last 3 to 5, I guess?
Yeah, the last 3 to 5, it's been somewhere around 15, and I suppose average over the 30s, somewhat less than that. 12, 13, something like that. It's been very good to have that. So a lot of these improvements I've made, quite frankly, as Jess Alger would say, check the rain gauge, because that'll answer a lot of questions, but they're real progress nonetheless. And this is just one of those. So I don't know what I'll do, but the last flood that came in here, just last year, right? It came right up here. I had a nice line that I could follow, and so I said, well, I better stay above that, whatever I do, and figure out what I do. And it just comes out of the rocks. It's kind of neat.